Sean I Unlocked John Wick Bryan is a junior at San Marcos High School. He's a pole vaulter. He attempted to vote at the age of 8 in the 2008 presidential election. He's a two-time qualifier for the UIL State Tournament and Policy Debate, and as a rising senior, has had competitive regional success. He will give a speech not to be longer than 2 minutes on why Fortnite is good for society.
I affirm, playing Fortnite is good for society. Playing Fortnite and other action games improve cognitive ability, OE, and Patterson 13. Abilities frequently in a video game improves performance in tasks that share common underlying demands. Many video games training-related improvements to cognition may be attributed to near-transferred effects, and these cognitive skills are portable to military readiness, Macedonia 2002. Employing these computer simulations have proved the smooth transition for younger generations of soldiers. Spoon-fed Nintendo and computer games, the Pentagon decided to customize and other consoles and PC-based simulations for its own purposes. An extensive study of the effectiveness of Microsoft's flight simulation, the U.S. Navy students who used the microsimulation products during the flight training were more likely to receive above average scores in real flight tests than peers who never used the software. And the best thing for society is a military readiness because the military provides answers to terrorists. RPGing a one-by-one base transfers to destroying and taking down terrorist bases of operations. Bullet drop and snipers in Fortnite can make the next Chris Kyle. And video games suggest a moral panic and perceived at a higher risk than reality. Markey and Ferguson 17. Video games are art. Millions of children are playing video games or growing up just fine. A moral panic is a set of flurry of political motivated and funded psychological research on why violent video games were a menace to society. What is a moral panic? The tendency to societies to develop an overblown fears which blame the real or often imagined social problems. Society goes through a period of overblown teaching us to fear 101, and fear these media's technologies blame any numbers of social ills.
We have a minute and 30 of question and answer. We'll ask Sean questions about what he just said.
So your last piece of evidence defines video games as art. Is all art good for society?
All art has a potential for society. We said video games are art just because it's a source of media outlet, which is proven to be demonized for political gain.
So how are video games demonized for political gain? Which politicians are giving a rousing anti-Fortnite speech in Congress?
While not specifically underlined, the evidence talks about Hillary Clinton using violent video games as a use for backing in her 2012 election, I think is what it says.
So then I guess how did Hillary Clinton influence studies about violent video games, or why does that matter?
Because they pay these scientists to do faulty research that is then projected outward onto other things like video games, which are then imposed as being bad, which is false.
Okay. Are all video games equally good for making people good at being in the military?
I would say that our Patterson 13 evidence is pretty good at saying that all video games can possess certain performance tasks that will make you better cognitively, and so that makes cognitive skills to military readiness in our Macedonia evidence possible.
All right. On the con side, we have Will the Big Red Noob Hutchinson, who's a senior at San Marcos High School. He will attend and compete in policy debate at the University of Texas at Austin next year in the fall. He is the 2017 UIL Policy Debate State Champion. a 3-time Texas Forensic Association tournament qualifier, and a connoisseur of various red hair dyes. He will give a speech not to be longer than 2 minutes.
I will begin with the definition of what a good society is. Amitai Adazoni, a PhD in sociology from UC Berkeley and recipient of many awards in the field of sociology, draws upon a key concept in his characterization of a good society. Community is a combination of 2 elements. A web of affect-laden relationships among a group of individuals, relationships that often crisscross and reinforce one another, and B, a measure of commitment to a set of shared values, norms, and meanings, a shared history and idea. In short, a particular culture, from his book, The Golden Rule in 1996. Thus, things that are good for society are things that promote and improve the web of relationships that we all have and strengthen our values. I negate playing Fortnite is good for society. Violent video games such as Fortnite encourage aggressive and violent behavior in their players. Dill and Dill from Linner and Ryan College in 1998. One way that exposure to violent video games may lead to greater aggression is through the construction, elaboration, and priming of aggressive thought networks. Exposure to the aggression can trigger related feelings and can bring to mind knowledge of aggression-related skills, memories, and beliefs. It can also color what behaviors are seen as appropriate. Research on aggression catharsis has generally shown behaving aggressively engenders more and not less aggressive behavior. Video game violence is directly rewarded. That is, the person playing the game behaves aggressively and is rewarded with points, sound effects, and access to new levels of the game for doing so. Furthermore, the antisocial behavior present in violent video games generally does not generate realistic consequences for the aggressor. In violent video games, aggression is often the main goal, and killing adversaries means winning the game and replacing the benefits. Playing Fortnite is therefore harmful to society and not good for it. By encouraging adolescents to be more aggressive in day-to-day interactions and creating more violent relationships, the people and interactions that we have deteriorate and become hostile. In a society in a world where people perceive killing others as morally acceptable and rewarded for it, we cannot have good shared interactions and values.
All right, we have question and answer for minute 30. Sean will now ask Will questions for minute 30.
Okay, couldn't a shared commitment of values be like getting a dub in Fortnite?
We would say that those are not the proper values because they don't uphold good relationships among people.
But wouldn't working together for...
Could you please report to the cafeteria?
Wouldn't be working together for a common goal start relationships for one another?
I know there are multiple types of playing Fortnite, but Fortnite necessarily involves competing against other people, whether individually or with groups. You're working together for a common goal to you, but not a common goal to society, which would be all 100 people in the Fortnite field.
So is the data in your second piece of evidence, is it conclusive? Like it is always violence video games are always bad?
Our evidence concludes that the overwhelming majority of studies done on this question conclude that violent video games do reinforce violent and aggressive behavior.
How exactly can we have a good society if it's not a well-protected society?
A well-protected society is not what we think that the affirmative or Fortnite creates. Fortnite is offensive, killing other people so you can win, not killing others to protect yourself.
No more questions.
All right, we got 2 speeches left. Sean is going to give the final pro speech, not to exceed 1 minute.
Remember my OE and Patterson and Macedonia evidence? It says video games improve cognitive ability and video games are prevalent in our military. This helps us get a more ready military the more we play games, including Fortnite. This helps us get more soldiers fighting like ninja in real life, which helps us protect the U.S. better. And remember the Markey and Ferguson evidence? It says politicians are trying to catch dubs like you whenever you try to load up a game. So they get huge political backing by making a ruckus. So politicians will always find something to demonize, in this case, video games, to gain a political backing. This directly correlates to his piece of evidence that is talking about exposure to video games are being bad. Our Ferguson evidence is saying that the only reason that they have these conclusive pieces of evidence is only because politicians are using it for political backing. Also, in cross-ex, he was never able to efficiently answer my question about a well-protected community and also a shared goal.
We will give the final con speech, not to exceed a minute.
Remember my Dill evidence. Violent video games create violent people in multiple ways. It primes the brain for aggression, literally making the neural pathways that are activated during violent actions stronger. Additionally, being incentivized and encouraged to commit violent acts like murdering other characters distorts the values of individuals, collapsing the very values that constitute a society. In this debate, you can look to who has defined what a society is and how we improve that thing, which is only the con debaters. The affirmative says that we must protect our society, but Fortnite doesn't encourage you to protect your society, but to kill others so that you can grow and expand your person, your society, which is necessarily violent and offensive. Creating that type of personality in people deteriorates the ability for us to create interpersonal relationships, which is what a society is all about, how we treat each other and interact. Additionally, their evidence says that any video games learning those repetitive skills are what makes you a better being in the military, which means we don't need to have violent video games like Fortnite to gain these skills.
Perhaps a bit of bias, that doesn't matter. In a debate like this, there's usually a neutral judge that would decide, right? You wouldn't like it if you showed up and all of your judges were the parents from some other high school and they didn't want you to win. So when thinking about this debate, it's usually good to think about the arguments made, not the side that the person's on. It's not like Will hates Fortnite and had to debate this. He had to do that because I made him do it, and he had to research the evidence because I made him do it. Sean wanted to
be the pro side.
Say yes to Fortnite. In front of you, you have a piece of paper. That piece of paper lets us know whether or not you are interested in debate, given what you have seen. If you could fill out the top portion where it has your name, grade, ID number, and whether or not you are interested in debate. Hold on. That would be really helpful. And you can either return it to your English teachers, or you can pass it forward to the front of these rows so we can collect. If you have any questions, I'll have debaters walking around. Raise your hand and they'll come talk to you about debate while you're filling this stuff out.